Hi, Mark here from the Tangent Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent Bound Network is right for you.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of The Crazy Life. I'm Brian, joining me as usual, Hanno.
Howdy.
And yeah, we're back. Sorry about the long layoff, but you know, life did some things and we had other things going on, and
Yeah.
Hanno was out gallivanting around the ocean or whatever, and you know, so
And prior to that, stressing out, needing a vacation.
yeah, that's fair, you know.
That was the best part of my week before vacation. Was the whole week I was like, man, after this week, I'm going to need a vacation. Oh, wait, I've got one.
I've got one. Yeah.
Oh, so bad, man. It was so bad. I did something at work that was just, I mean, it was just against everything that I tell everybody about. It's like nobody's got someone looking over you, counting the minutes and the dollars that are being, like, it's not a job site. It's not, no one's done a bid. We can take our time. We can do stuff right. And I just went in at something. And when I finally saw what was behind it, I was like, uh-oh. Like, glue. I need some glue. It was what they say is like, the mark of a good carpenter isn't whether you make mistakes, it's how well you hide them.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Oh God. And things were not working out. Things were not going according to plan. Like, it was a very, very stressful week. I couldn't even because I was kind of hoping it'd be nice to do podcast before I went on the cruise. Oh, that's why I thought I was going to do it on the cruise maybe.
Oh yeah, that's right, because we talked about that. Yeah.
Right. So this week I canceled all my rehearsals. I'm like I got this cruise coming up. I'm thinking about getting packed for that. And this project that we started was just, like I said, things weren't going out. The fact that I wasn't cutting holes in walls and figuring out what was behind it beforehand months ago is really, let's just say we made some assumptions about some dimensions that ended up not being accurate. And if I'd,
that's why you're supposed to measure,
Yeah, I mean, and it was funny because even last week when I got back, there was a problem where something was 20 inches long and longer than they thought. And I looked at Craig, our contractor, and I said, remember that paragraph I told you is on every drawing that says contractor to verify all measurements in field prior to fabricating? I'm like, I told you it's on there somewhere. And I'm like, and when I talked to the original engineer will be involved because I need him to make a new modify a drawing. And I had a little laugh with him when he finally called me last week. I'm like, yeah, you know that thing that you all put in your, on that drawing? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so everything's working out fine. It's just, we're going to have to do more things when we needed to. But that week I was super stressed. And then I didn't do the full back pull. I did so it turns out our buildings have almost like an inch of stucco.
Okay.
Stucco's really heavy.
Yeah.
I picked up a 3.
Do you know why there's an inch of stucco there? They don't want you to dig through it to find the problem behind it.
Right. I was, every single time I pick up a chunk of stucco that I've cut out of a wall, I'm like, okay, this is why our buildings are made out of concrete and steel, because you need to support all this stucco.
Yeah, that's
it's ridiculous. I just picked up like I said, it was I had this huge piece and I ended up breaking it in half because I'm like, I physically can't lift this up. And it was, I made it more manageable. It's 2 feet wide, 3 or 4 feet long. And I lift it up and it's heavy, but it's not too heavy. But I'm pondering just the sheer weight of stucco on our buildings. And I'm going up the stairs and I get to the top step and I take that one step and I just felt a little twinge on the right side of my back. And I'm like,
oh, no.
Okay. And then, I was having to do stuff. I was having to do physical things. And so every day I'd be throw the ice pack on there because it didn't turn into the full blown blowout.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
I know you and Tony were talking about this on Salty Language.
Yep.
There's that point where you just have that little bit of a twinge and you got a little muscle spasm versus where it just spreads.
Yeah.
And everything kind of goes numb and you can no longer put your socks on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without contorting yourself in odd positions.
It's I guess I'm wearing slippers everywhere.
So I was dealing with that. I was dealing with the stress of just, okay, I got to fix this thing and cover it up before somebody sees this mistake. And luckily the mistake ended up being not that big of a deal because there was a reason why things weren't as we thought they were going to be, because there was originally supposed to be another structure on top of this, and there is no structure on top of it. So it's no big deal. Yeah. So anyhow, the week is over. Boom. The best part was talking to my mom, and she goes, "We're leaving this Saturday." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." She's like, "For some reason, I thought it was a week from this Saturday." I'm like, "No, it's this Saturday."
Uh-oh.
So I get there it was awesome. I get there on Friday, a little delayed getting there, whatever. Hang out with my it was Friday night and they do pizza night over at my sister's house. So I went over there. We're looking at these cool old coins that they pulled out of my parents' safe deposit box. And we were trying to figure out what we're going to do with them and making our own pizzas. And I got to see my nephews and it was cool. I just got to hang out with them. And then, went on the cruise with my mom and never been on a cruise before, because of the really bummer weather for the first few days. It was kind of boring, but I'm okay with that. I've got my little video games. I've got my books. I've got magazine stuff. And it was what I popped on a video game.
Your picture that you posted or the video you posted of that pool. I was like, oh my God.
So we just get out of San Francisco Bay and there was a storm in the Bay Area.
Right.
And so there was a swell. But the funny thing was I posted about this where I said, my mom and I were looking out the water. I'm like, what's weird? I've been out in rougher water than this on my jet ski. And she just goes, I'm glad you never told me this back then. Because we would go under the Golden Gate Bridge when there was 20-foot swells coming through.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like that. The swells were faster than I could jet ski.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because they would get squeezed through the tower and the point, and so it would accelerate. And I was on a stand up, and I would go up the swell would be so steep on the front side that I would fall onto my belly because I would have been horizontal. I couldn't actually stay on the ski anymore, and you would fall off the other side.
Oh wow!
Because it was coming by so fast, you'd feel the sensation of falling. So I haven't been seasick since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
So I feel like, but that first night when I was in the room and I'm like, all right, the boat's moving a lot. And I'm like, and I couldn't describe the feeling. I kept thinking about like when I've had like major anxiety and my face gets hot, and I was equating it to like when you've had a loss in your life, you know, or you're going through the whole, you know, mourning and the stuff. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And so I'm like, I just got to walk. So I start walking. It's the weirdest thing when you're going upstairs and all of a sudden you're going up a lot of stairs easily. And all of a sudden it's really hard. I was like,
Wow.
and then I couldn't go outside because all the doors were closed off because it was a safety hazard.
Oh,
but
right.
luckily the open area around the pool was open. And it wasn't like raining. It was just like, you know, when it's like blustery and it's moist, right? And so I get up there, I'm just watching this pool, and this guy, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, that pool was wild, man. Because
something.
when I saw how much that water in that pool, sorry, for those who didn't see Heno's video, the pool was sloshing back and forth. Like if you had a drink in your hand and you were just shaking your hand.
Everywhere, yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, that boat must really be rocking.
And it was just, I mean, the ship is massive,
Yeah,
you know, so
right.
it's really not moving that much, but it's enough where, you know, you notice it. And
Yeah.
it finally dawned on me, what I was feeling was high blood pressure.
Yeah.
Is that pressure, you know, I was having high blood pressure, and I was like, God, I wish I had a cuff right now. I would love to see where I'm at, because I just needed to walk. And then finally we went and got some food, and, you know, things got better. And the next day was great, but the next day it's just cloudy. There's nothing really to see. You're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And when I went to go play my video games and I couldn't, I'm like, oh, Skype's not happening. It was just a little too, like, they had Wi-Fi everywhere, but it wasn't quite going to be enough. So I'm like, all right, this is out, you know.
Fair
but
enough.
I had a great time. It was.
Where else did you guys go? I don't remember if I asked you before.
It was San Diego. So you basically, we got out of San Francisco Bay in the afternoon on Saturday. Sunday you were at sea. Monday morning we pulled into San Diego, and you're in San Diego till like 9 at night. Kind of wish I had, you know, in hindsight, I kind of wish I went to the San Diego Zoo, because it is pretty much world famous.
Yeah.
But I went.
I mean, I've heard Toledo's is better, but whatever. So
yeah. So it was just nice to just walk off the ship, and I went to the Maritime Museum. And it was really cool because they had the actual boat that they filmed Master and Commander on.
Oh,
and,
cool. Oh,
and,
yeah. I
and
remember your pictures of.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And there was like just neat. It was trippy. They had a full like museum that had been built up of steam boilers and all the engines. It was like a museum for steam engines and all the stuff that would be on a steam ship. And it was trippy because I'm like, it's the same stuff I have right now. It's just older.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
But it was like the boilers are like our boilers are just ours are gas. And it was kind of funny. We had like a lot of the same kind of pumps and motors. I was like, you know what? I could actually operate all this stuff. It's just,
Nice.
you know, ours is automated, and there you'd have to turn some, you know, dials and stuff. But
Right.
that stuff was cool. And then I went back on, and like I said, I was just relaxing. It was just nice to do nothing. I'm totally good with it.
Yeah.
But I did miss the one thing I love about Jamaica is I love the sounds and the smells. And until you get into a port, you don't hear anything, you don't see anything.
Right.
It's just a giant, like, the food though, like, so I got distracted from it. It's a hotel on water, basically,
Right.
is what it is, right?
Sure.
But the food was so good. Like,
Well, good. Yeah.
wow, the food was good. Like,
Awesome.
I was not expecting that level of eating. Like, I was like, wow, this is great. But the whole point of this was to spend time with my mom, and I really loved it. And one of the things that occurred during this trip, we were actually supposed to be in Jamaica that same week.
Oh, okay.
And we had to cancel it because Sharon does the Sun Valley Film Festival, and it's usually at the end of March, and they decided to move it into February.
Oh, okay.
The same, basically President's Week.
Right.
And this is great. My mom's looking around going, you know, usually I see people, there's one formal night. If you saw the post, you saw me dressed up like an insurance salesman.
Yeah.
But there's one formal night. My mom says, you know, I don't see anybody in tuxes here. We're usually somebody's in tuxes. I'm like, Mom, it's a 5-day cruise on President's Week. This is why there's so many families with children. It's the cheapest cruise. no one's going to be wearing tuxes on the cheapest cruise.
Right.
And there's kids. There were kids everywhere.
Yeah.
There's 3,000 people on this ship.
Jesus.
3,000.
It is so like I've never been. The last time I was near a cruise ship was probably in the like 80s. I remember somewhere we were seeing one like off in the distance or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I think it was like when I was a kid and we were in Florida. You know, and I saw one that was in port or something like that. But we're talking like a 1980s cruise ship. And I know they've just gotten ridiculous since then.
Oh.
So, and even then seeing it, plus I was a kid,
Yeah.
you know, so everything seems huge to you. But, you know, I was like, I remember how big they are. But I've seen people, like pictures of people standing by these cruise ships or having like huge cranes that you're like, oh my God, those cranes are massive. And it just is dwarfed by this massive boat. It's insane. The physics on this work. Like you look at it and go, how does this not just sink? I mean, I understand the physics, but you know what I mean? It's like you still look at this thing and go, how can something that massive float?
Well, what blows me away is how can something that massive still move?
Yeah.
Like
right?
you think it would just like it would just be a solid, you know.
Yeah.
And this wasn't even that big. It's like 17 floors. That's like nothing in the cruise industry.
Right. Yeah,
nowadays.
you're right. It is.
Right.
Yeah.
This thing is ready to be retired.
I was going to say that's probably closer to what I saw as a kid, you know, because they weren't you know, massive like that.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd have one or two in the fleet. You know, those were like the flagship ones, but then most of them were, you know, smaller.
So there were, you know, like you said, we're supposed to do Jamaica, and that didn't happen. And it was just, I couldn't move the Jamaica dates. If you moved them a few weeks, outside of a few weeks, you lost all your incentives and everything. And
Of course, yeah.
I honestly just, I was hoping maybe something would come along that would get us to go, but it just wasn't seeming like it. And then we got into this idea of like maybe going to Belize or Costa Rica. And I just said, you know, that's going to be 2025.
Yeah.
You know, let's maybe come up with something for this year. And so
yeah, like come to Toledo and go to the world famous Toledo Zoo. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So my mom's, you know, calls me out of the blue and she's like, you know, I went on this cruise last fall. I enjoyed it. This was my mom's 28th cruise. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And she, and on Princess, she'd done, you know, I don't know, probably 17 or 18. So she had elite status and all the special stuff. But she, you know, so she called me, she's like, you want to come with me? And I was like, oh boy, it's the week we were supposed to be in Jamaica that now Sharon's working. It's her birthday. And for the last 6 months, I pretty much haven't heard the end of it. And then there's another event that she loves to go to. And
I feel like you got to dial it up next year to try to make up for, you know.
This other event she wanted to do, there's something else going on at work, like the freaking Dandelion Festival.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, daffodils,
Yeah.
whatever. Dandelions, daffodils are yellow.
Yeah.
They come up in the spring, whatever.
Right.
Anyhow, so my mom says to me, well, you know, your father basically paid for your sister and brother-in-law and nephews to go to Alaska twice. So I think it'd only be fair that I pay for you and Sharon to go to Alaska.
Oh,
and I was like, really? So we're on the ship at the little travel dude, and I explained the whole situation, and he's laughing at me. Like, wow, you're in hot water, aren't you? I'm like, yeah,
a little bit.
Like, so what do you got? What do you got? And he goes, well, I said, we'd want to go out of Seattle. He's like, okay, 7 days, inland passage, right? And I was like, yep, got to see stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, well, July, August, best time to go. I can get July 6th. And I'm like, really? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, well, let me find out. So I sent a message to Sharon real quick. She comes back with, it was perfect. Nothing's going on at work. Her boss is out of town. Like, everything's great. I'm like, book it. And suddenly I became the best husband ever again. So it turns out that Sharon's been to 49 states.
Oh, really? So she's Alaska's the last one, right? Nice. Close it out.
I guarantee she will never go on another cruise again. The only reason this is even going to be interesting and enjoyable is because we're going to go to Alaska. We're going to get off the ship and go do stuff. And we're going to hopefully see some cool wildlife. But honestly, it was just not my. I mean, it was okay. Like it was great to relax, but overall, it wasn't that big a deal. So, anyhow, get home. During the week, all of a sudden, I get home, open up the letter. Oh, okay, great, cool. Got to call in for jury duty the day before my birthday on March 12th.
All right.
Right.
I can tell you, since this is a podcast where we discuss mental health stuff, that is one bonus of having agoraphobia and not driving and anxiety is I have an auto out for jury duty. So
now, luckily, my employer I will get paid for this, so it's
so
not
you're not getting
bad.
the like $1.50 a day or whatever they pay you for jury duty.
But here's the best part: is I have to actually remit the $1.50 I get back to my employer.
I guess that's fair. That's a good trade. Right? I mean, if you could turn $1.50 into fill in the blank what Heno makes an hour, I'm sure that's a fair trade on your end.
Yeah. So I had a dentist appointment this week, and Sharon's like, she's busy. Like, I'm taking care of the dogs. So I managed to get, when I'm supposed to pick up the dogs, I forgot about the dentist appointment. I need to pick up the dogs from the groomers, and I'm supposed to be at the dentist at the same time. I'm like, all right, somehow I'm going to make this work. So I make it work. I get into the dentist. And the night before, I just out of the blue got some ice cream and noticed quite a bit of sensitivity in one spot.
Yeah.
Look, you ever heard the joke, like, what would you rather have, a root canal or jury duty? I get to have both.
All right.
A day apart. So on March 11th, I get a root canal.
Yeah.
Then on March 12th, March 11th at night, I'll find out whether I have to be at jury duty. And then 2 weeks after that, I got to get 2 crowns because I'm basically everywhere they've put a crown, I've destroyed the tooth underneath it.
Nice.
Because I'm just horrible on my teeth. And I wear a night guard. And anyhow, I called my mom and she just started laughing. And I'm like, I know, it's funny. Like, it is just funny.
There's not much else you can do with that is laugh at it. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But again, like, I'm here to report life is good. And, I'm looking forward to, getting a free cruise to Alaska. How awesome is that? That's why my mom laughed about it. She was just like, hey, but look at the bright side. Right. You're getting a free cruise to Alaska.
Right.
So why not laugh?
Yeah.
I will. So
I mean, that should be really cool, though. I mean, everybody that I've known that's gone to Alaska just raves about how beautiful everything is and how cool it is to, how different it is from everything in, this part of the country, which makes sense considering its, location, that it's not anywhere by, us to where, like you said, you've either got to fly to it or take a cruise to it, basically. So, well, you could drive, but you got to go up through Canada or whatever. But, it's, yeah.
And I thought my mom would want to go. And she's like, you know what? I don't need to get on a plane. She's like, I'm just going to do another cruise out of San Francisco Bay. My brother-in-law just drops her right off at the pier. She gets on the boat, does whatever, 7 days. She's going to do, I didn't finish. I did San Diego. We ended up at Ensenada.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't even get off the ship at Ensenada. I used to go down with my jet ski down to Baja all the time. I was like, I've already seen like cool stuff.
You weren't going anywhere new with this one. Okay. I was wondering because I knew it was going off the West Coast, and I was like, where do you go on a cruise from the West Coast? Because the East Coast, you go down to the islands or whatever, and so I was wondering if maybe it was like because you didn't say anything about Hawaii, so I was like, well, they're not going to Hawaii or anything, so I don't, okay.
So they basically what these ships do is they'll also go to Hawaii too, but they basically will do Mexico.
Okay.
Various Mexican locations, and then they go to Alaska in the summertime. And then that same boat goes down to Mexico in the wintertime. And, the last couple days were gorgeous, and my last night sunsets were amazing. And it was awesome to just sit outside finally and just enjoy the being out there in the ocean. And that part of it was cool. But, all in all, I'm glad I did it. And, I'm really looking forward to Alaska, and at least this year we, Sharon has something to look forward to. I have something to look forward to. And then next year we'll go, hang out with monkeys in Belize or something.
Right.
So
have you ever gotten to see the Northern Lights?
No, I haven't.
I hope you get to see them when you're up there. That's like one of my I have like nothing basically on a bucket list, but that is one thing on there, and I know. there's like further up in Michigan, like I don't remember if it's up in the UP or if it's just further up in the Mitten part. There's like a night park to where there's like no light pollution.
Light pollution.
And
yeah.
sometimes you can see the lights up there, and it's like I'd love to go see them because it's something I just want to see in person. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I don't, I've seen them online tons of times. Hell, my screensaver sometimes from Windows is the Northern Lights, and it's beautiful. It's just something I want to see once at some point, and I'm jealous of like a friend of mine worked way up in Canada, I think. And she got, she used to send me pictures like regularly of them, whenever it would happen. And I was like, oh, I'm so jealous. And then it was like, then I'm like, well, I'm not, because you're also dealing with like negative 40-degree weather. I'm not jealous of that, but I am jealous of being able to see that stuff. But yeah, just remember one thing, which is don't pet polar bears if you're up there.
Okay.
Stay clear.
I will promise not to drink or eat the yellow snow
Yeah.
or pet the big white teddy bear.
Yeah. Try to stay
That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So otherwise, life is good, and I don't have a whole lot to complain about, except for myself. Usually, I'm my worst enemy.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
that's about it. Like
Yeah.
this week, I had an owner come up to me that's like, all right, there was something that needed to be fixed at work that just was going to be time consuming and really a pain. And I'd just been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And I was going to do it every single week. I was going to do it. Something more important came up. And then finally he just got really angry, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And it was so funny how when it was done, I was like, oh, that's what that annoying thing was buzzing around in the back of my head all the time, right? Like I was like, I didn't like, you don't even know it's there until it's gone. All of a sudden I was like, wow, I am my worst enemy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the truth. It really is. Yeah.
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 Just got to remind myself of that.
Yeah. Well, that self-talk sometimes is brutal unless you get to shift it around. But yeah.
Anyhow, how have you been?
Not too bad, but also, I saw somebody post something on Twitter the other day that really kind of made me think at times of how easy it is to do this, which is she posted, like, I don't think I've really been truthful with myself about how depressed I am, kind of a thing.
Mm.
And I was like, there's so much truth in that I think a lot of us that suffer from depression don't realize, I've talked about it on here before, where a lot of times you don't even realize it until you're well in it or you're out of it. And then you go, oh, kind of like you were just talking with that voice in the back of your head, right? Is that, once you're done with it, you're like, oh, that's what was going on, and it's weird how you kind of run in cycles with this stuff because, depression has cycles sometimes, has spirals and whatnot. But I think I kind of went through another one and didn't realize it until I was kind of on the other side of, I'm really feeling, it's funny because I'm not really a FOMO person, like occasionally I'll be a little jealous of someone getting an experience or doing something that it's like, oh, I'd always wanted to do that kind of thing. But I'm not really bad about that. I'm more generally just like you telling me about Alaska. It's one of those places I'd love to go, but I'll probably never go because I don't fly and I don't travel real well. So I'm jealous, but more of a happy for you jealous, than I am like, obviously I wouldn't wish any ill on you toward it, kind of a situation. But I found myself like, I keep talking with people, friends of mine, about, like this game called Helldivers 2, which for the best way I can describe it to people from the looks of it is if you've seen the movie Starship Troopers, it's basically that as a video game.
Oh,
right?
You and Tony were talking about that on Faulty Language.
I've
right?
had so much FOMO for people playing this and jealousy because I keep seeing videos and people, oh man, it's so much fun and blah, blah. And I don't have the current gen system I have they don't make it for the Xbox. It's a PlayStation 5 exclusive, at least currently. And I'm like, man, I'm in And so I'm, and I've talked on here before about, my money issues and whatnot. And, so in my head, I'm racking through like, what can I do to come up with, like to do this. Right. But then I got into it a little more because I was like, why am I so like, obviously I want to join in something that seemingly is fun, right? That's the main cause. But I also was thinking about it in that because I don't go a lot of places, video games over the years have been a really, a major factor in my socializing. Like that's how I would, not as much recently, but for a long time that's how I would spend time. Once your friends all have kids and get married and the work schedules don't line up, you can't maybe hang out like you'd like to, but you could jump on once a week and play a video game together or something, or you make new friends because you're playing video games, whatever. And I was thinking about it and how much that not being able to stay current can affect people who have like they're introverts and such, or just don't leave their house a whole lot. And, I made a post about it on various social medias, and I got so many people responding to me basically saying, yeah, I understand because I deal with the same thing and blah, blah, blah. It's like it wasn't really me complaining as much as it was just something I had never put any thought into about how something that seemingly, like in the grand scheme of things, right? Like who cares? It is not that big a deal. But for some people, when you don't have a lot of socializing, when you take any aspect of it away, it can make a big deal out of something that seemingly is not a big deal. So, and it was interesting talking with a few people over the week about it, about how, like one person, said the same thing, that all of her friends are on, playing games on PS5 and she can't afford one. So she's, can't play stuff with them basically, unless it's something that's a cross gen game. So, they try to figure that out, but everybody always wants to play the new hotness. Nobody really wants to go back and play the old stuff, and, but I just thought it was kind of interesting, just as something every once in a while, I could just kind of have those thoughts of something in that world that I hadn't thought about before, how having mental illness of some sort how limiting it is, like it's just another way that it's limiting basically. And then in the same week, I was thinking about it. I was talking with somebody and they were talking about regrets in life, and I was like, I'm not really a regrets guy, like I'm more, learn from your mistakes and, that's part of who you are kind of thing. Like Tony and I had a shop. There were a lot of things we did wrong. Do I wish I could have gone back and done them right? Yeah, but not enough that I'm like obsessing on it. You know what I mean? I'm more like, hey, we gave it a shot. Like I tried to live my dream type situation. But anyway, but I was thinking back on it and it's like, I really, really think the only real regret I feel in my life, well, two. One is not getting treated for my mental illness sooner, because I could have maybe saved myself a lot of misery, but I wasn't in the place for it. It wasn't the right time. And the other is not learning to drive and getting my driver's license. And for years and years, I when people are like, don't you hate blah 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 about not having a license, and I'm like, whatever, I make it work, But I really, really thinking about it, it's like there's probably a lot of things I've missed out on because of not driving. Because a lot of my years were before Uber and Lyft and stuff were so common. And yeah, I could have gotten a cab, but cabs were expensive. That, and again, for somebody not having much money, you can't cab everywhere, But it's like, I've never had any of my friends say, like, to my face, I didn't invite you because you don't drive. But I know it had to have been in factoring sometimes, to where somebody will go do something. And it's like, they'd have to drive, like, all the way to this side of town to get me to take me all the way. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. So maybe they just don't. And even if that's not the case, it's the idea that I could have just joined in at times. Like people have told me they're doing something and the options just weren't really there. Also, you know, like dating and stuff like that. Like I look at that stuff now, and you know, it's a hard situation because I don't live in a city where it's normal to not drive. You know, now I do know, and again, for anyone who is listening, if you also don't drive, it is way more normal than I thought it was. Like, especially with people who are like neurotypical and autistic, there are a lot of people in that range that do not drive. You know, same with anxiety and such. Like, there's a whole subreddit on Reddit about driving anxiety. And boy, have I like learned some stuff and had some good conversations in there. You know, finding like-minded people, and you know, it's it being in that forum. You know, it's like I saw one about I think it was like a week ago, and it was somebody who's like 23 or 24, and they were talking about how much crap they get from people because they don't drive. You know, and they're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And, you know, a bunch of us that are older are kind of like, hey, look, you'll figure it out. You know, there's options. And especially now, there's way more options than there were. But you know, you can run into a perfect storm, right? Like, like if you don't have much money, Uber and Lyft kind of are a problem because you don't have much money, right? Well, if you have depression, your brain is going to tell you if you ask someone for a ride that you're a burden. You know, you can kind of run into a perfect storm of basically creating a complete introvert out of you. So, you know, if somebody's listening and you're doing it, like, try to fight against that as much as you can, you know. A lot of times people don't mind giving you a ride. You know, they really don't. And if they do, then don't ask them anymore. You know,
True.
I mean, also to people out there, if you do mind giving somebody a ride, don't agree to it and then be a jerk about it, you know. And actually the biggest thing, because the only thing, like with me not driving, the thing I hate the most about it, aside from I can't just go, right, is getting trapped sometimes. You're with somebody and they decide they want to go here or do this, and you're kind of along for the ride because, you know, they gave you a ride. So now you're kind of like, oh, I guess I'm running all your errands with you too. You know, like, okay, I guess, you know, it's like, I got stuff I need to do though. So that's where, you know, but anyway, it's just interesting, I think, looking back at it, because I've never really seen it as a regret, but I really think looking back at it, is I would really encourage anybody to get it, even if you don't use it a lot. You know, like even if you only drive to local places. Because again, we do live in a time where everything can get delivered to you. So now at like midnight, if I want Taco Bell, I can just get on DoorDash and get Taco Bell. You know, it's not like it was when I was a kid where late at night I'd be like, boy, I could really go for blank. And I'm like, well, I don't drive, so I guess I'm stuck here. Anyway, yeah, so you know, like I said, I implore anybody, if you're young enough or whatever, or if you're not a driver, if you can, you know, to do it, because I'm seeing it more and more too. Because like the other night I was thinking about it. You know, it's like my mom's getting older; she doesn't like to drive as much. All my family, like I'm the youngest, and I'm 45. You know, so my siblings are getting older. You know, and it's like. You know, I'm looking at these different things like long-term solutions here, and I'm like, I'm going to have to, you know, this could become problematic for me. I'm just going to have everything delivered, I guess, and never leave the house. No big deal. Just grow a beard to my toes and, you know, fully hermit it up. But no, that, and, you know, because that's not good. You know, I don't want that, obviously. But anyway, so, yeah, I just kind of done a little self-reflection. Having said that, I wish I could bring myself to trying it. Now, on top of all the phobias and everything, you know, I've also got all these years of not doing it on top of it, you know, so it feels insurmountable at this point, even though I know it isn't. My grandmother, my grandpa died, and I think she was in her 50s when she got her driver's license. Like, she never drove because he drove everywhere.
Wow.
So she never had to drive. And then when he died, well, now she's got to go to work. So she got her license, So it's like it's never too late. Well, I mean, there is obviously a point, but you know what I mean. Like, so anyway, yeah. But other than that stuff, it's like things have been pretty decent. I've been really trying to focus my head on, because again, the money stuff always drags me down, right? Like no matter what it is, it always drags me down. And I've been really trying to focus on needs versus wants. All of my needs are met. Got a house, got food, got clothes, all that kind of stuff. So it's like my needs are met. So,
but you don't have a French bulldog.
I don't. You're right. So maybe all my needs aren't met. I have a cat that wants nothing to do with me most of the time, but not a French bulldog.
That's 36 pounds and thinks he's a lap dog.
What are you talking about? He is a lap dog.
He's in my lap.
He's in your lap, yeah. Sure, he's taking up most of the chair.
It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Because he's heavy.
Yeah. That's the worst part, right? It's like when they're heavy and they want to be in your lap all the time. It's like the people that have the like 90 or 100-pound dogs that think they're lap dogs, and they just like lay all over you. It's like, buddy, no. Yeah, it's sometimes like I say, and I've really been reflecting on that stuff and trying to that, and it's weird because I've not felt down about this stuff. Like I really feel like it's more of a like sometimes you kind of dig through your the box that you keep your stuff from your past in a little bit, and it's not living there, but sometimes you dig through it and you're like, oh yeah, like you kind of figure something out, and then maybe you kind of like, okay, I can put this away now, and I don't think I've been honest with myself about how much I regret and hate that I never got my license, and I've got all sorts of people who are, hey, anytime you want to go, like, my brother's told me countless times, he's been taking my niece and one of her friends so that they can learn to drive, and he's like, he's like, anytime you want, I'll take you out, and I know I got other friends and stuff that 100% would, but it's just a matter of, I've got to overcome a lot to get to the point that I can then actually drive, So I got a lot of work to unpack and deal with there first, but and then to keep the train moving here, I promise this is going to come around to better things, but over the last week, somebody that I was not close with, but I knew from high school, and oddly enough, became friends with my mom because she played bunco with my mom and my sister. And then my mom was telling me about her, and I'm like, wait, what was her name? And she told me, and I was like, I went to high school with her. She graduated the same year I did, So I was like, that's kind of funny. And I'm like, but I didn't really, I knew of her, but didn't really know her, right? Like we might have been in a couple classes or something. But anyway, so she really had some grief and depression that it consumed her, and she unfortunately took her own life. And it's sad, because I hate whenever I hear these stories. I hate that people feel like there's no way out for them other than that. Like I hate that grief and depression do that to a person. They just literally eat you alive and just drag you under the water. And, but what I did was I found an opportunity to talk with some people and explain the mindset a little more to them about depression and how much it lies to you and how you can't see out of that forest. You're in such survival mode sometimes that you literally can't see it. And then also, as you and I have talked about addiction or anything else, right? Mental illness, any of this, is that you can't help somebody if they don't want the help, or if they don't feel that the help will work. And unfortunately, she had lost her husband, and basically the only thing that she felt that would bring her grief or fix her grief would be to have her be with him again. You know, and you can't fight that. I mean, you can try. You can try real hard, and people did, and you know, she had tried therapy and stuff, but it's like you're not getting the answer you really want. And again, your brain's telling you a lot of lies. And unfortunately, sometimes people can't be saved. And I don't mean that in any way as a defeatist attitude or anything. It's just the truth. I mean, like I said, in addiction, we've all probably seen it too. It's, sometimes people just can't be saved, because they just don't want it. And unfortunately, it's really hard to accept that because everybody, especially after you hear a story like this, people around are always like, I wish I had done more. I wish, I could have done this if I only knew. And it's like, no, you're not getting it, though, is that they didn't want that, also. So it's been nice that I've been able to talk mental illness with some people and grief, because grief's a real monster sometimes. And then when you get the tag team of grief and depression, that can be good. But the other thing was, speaking of like self-reflection, was that it made me really, really take a step back and go, wow, I am so lucky that I deal with depression, but I've gotten enough tools and done enough work and been able to keep my head above the water. And I in no way am judging anyone who can't. You know that as well as anybody. I understand if people feel that's their answer, that's their answer. I mean, I hate it, but here we are, it's just what's going to happen sometimes. But it did really make me take that step back and go, wow, I'm really lucky that I am able to clear my head and stay above the water and all this. But it also very strongly reminds you, like, I don't remember what I heard that on, but somebody made a comment that it was like, the thing a lot of people don't understand with depression is that every day you have to fight it, because all it takes is one time for it to win and it's over, so, it's funny though. I posted thoughts like that, and I got so many people that are like, keep fighting. And it's like, no, it's like, I'm not looking for, sympathy or whatever here. It's like, I'm more looking at it as like the clarity that I'm afforded at this point, and how far I've come. Again, if I go back and listen to the early episodes of the show to now, is leaps and bounds from where I was mentally, so it's so sad though, seeing people hurting over stuff, and a lot of them don't feel they have answers and all that kind of stuff. And the best thing I can say is, if you don't understand these things, reach out and talk to people, talk to a therapist, or find groups online that can help you with grief, because, like I said, grief can be a real monster. I mean, after my dad died, I really, again, we'll talk regrets, right? I'll go back to another one, which is, I really wish I had an opportunity to talk to a grief counselor, and I did not take it. And I really wish I had, because I think it would have made a massive difference, because I carried an unfair burden that I put on myself afterwards of I wish I would have done more. I should have this. I should, those things were, as we've talked, I was right where I was supposed to be, which was not in the room with him. So, yeah. I just, as always, I just implore people, just please keep fighting. Please reach out. But again, it's so hard to be understanding when somebody does something like this, but it is it's understandable. I can see it. Like I've talked before, it's like when you really take a step back, right? And you tell people, hey, you got to keep fighting. You got to keep fighting. And it's like me, right? I'm 45. If I live to the average life expectancy, that's what, like 77? That's 32 more years of having to fight this fight. if asking someone to do that is so hard. It's tough, but like I said, just people are going to do what they want to do, and sometimes you just can't save them. Like I said, whether it's addiction or depression or any of this stuff, is if somebody doesn't want help, they're not going to look for help. Help is not. I heard saw a great post on Twitter the other day that said it was like hot take. Unsolicited advice is just criticism, and I kind of like that a lot because that's kind of how it's received. Is if I didn't ask you for advice and you're giving me advice, sometimes it's like, yeah, no one asked you. Like, why are you criticizing this about me? So, anyways, just please be kind with people as they deal with this stuff and whatever. Because again, like I said, and don't beat yourself up. If someone in your life does this, it's probably not your fault. You probably couldn't have done anything to really help. Sometimes, yes, but a lot of times, like she picked a time when nobody was home, and people were like, oh, if I had only, and it's like, you weren't supposed to be there.
No, you weren't. Yeah,
it's the point. My
friend Eric, it's like he figured out how he was going to do it so that nobody was ever going to be able to, it's every single time it's happened around me now. I've been shocked, but I wasn't surprised.
Yeah. That was my thing in this scenario was I had seen the way she had been posting on her Facebook. And when I found out, and I was telling my mom, and I was like, yeah, I'm not surprised because the language she was using was like, she's deep in it. Like I remember being that deep, years ago when I was suicidal. I remember those things, and in my head I was just like, it wouldn't surprise me if she does something, and that doesn't mean that I had any sort of like advanced knowledge that could have saved anything. Like from what I understand, she had a therapy session the next day scheduled, so it was like everything looked normal, but again, you never know what's going on behind the mask, so yeah, it's why I said it's like people also need to show themselves kindness in these situations because a lot of people around it will beat themselves up over it. And most of the time there probably isn't a lot you could have really done. It's different if somebody's reaching out constantly and you were ignoring them, then, maybe, but even then you don't know, so, yeah. But like I said, if you're having trouble with your grief, please seek a counselor and see if they can help you. I just, it's such a loss for it. But like I said, it was in the dark, finding, like I said, for me, I found a silver lining in it, which was kind of, like I said, looking at my life and going, wow, I've been really blessed. I've been very lucky that I have a great support, system around me. I recognized that I needed help and went and got the help and have done work and all this kind of stuff. And again, I'm in no way judging what this person did or anyone does. It's just, I'm just simply looking at me going, I don't want to die. I'm glad I'm fighting. I'm glad that I've been able to get tools to help me. I wish everyone could. And as well as like, it kills me when I hear people going through this stuff because I've been there. I know what it's like. I don't wish it on anybody. And I also know that sometimes there's no light at the end of the tunnel, as much as we all want to, it'll get better. It's like, sometimes it just doesn't though, but just don't obsess on that.
Like that's right now, all that's been going through, my heart is my gratitude for, I get this opportunity to spend a week with my mother. She's going to be 89 years old this year, right?
Yep.
A lot of people don't get to do that.
True.
A lot of people, once I asked my mom a couple of years ago, I said, do you think you'll go on another cruise again now that Dad's gone? And she's like, nah, probably not. And then she goes and just, books one and goes for it.
Right.
And then she's like, books another one. And now she's booking another one. I see someone that is so inspirational to me.
Yeah.
She's 80. I mean, I was going through, so my midlife crisis didn't involve buying expensive, stuff that I didn't have in my 20s, because I bought all this stuff and I did it all.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I did some bucket list stuff. I don't feel the need to go out and live the things that I didn't have because whatever, I raised a family, because I didn't.
Yeah.
I made choices in my life. And, but my midlife crisis had to do with like, well, it's all over now. I'm 50. That's it. We're done.
Yeah.
Me and Neil would sit there, the body stuff, and, you just can't do things the way you did before. And like, and I look at my mom now and I'm just going, okay, the woman's 88.
Right.
She's going for it. She's living.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear you talking about right now. You want to live a life.
Yeah.
Like, all right, so it's not, so you got some regrets. So maybe something, like it to be a little different in some ways. But like I look at it as like, okay, I got everything I need. What if, when it comes to, what's most important in life, it really comes down to these moments of joy that we have with our family and our friends, and just like, all right, example, yesterday, we, I thought, oh, maybe, what was it? Was it Friday night? Friday night. Yeah. Maybe we do a podcast or something.
Yeah.
And Friday I had a song I started before I left, and everyone's like, hey, can you record a new version of it? So I recorded a whole demo of this tune.
Oh, wow.
I recorded guitars. I recorded vocals. I threw some drum loops down, and I figured out a bass part, and I recorded the whole song. And I was able to send it to the band members, and I went, wow, why am I thinking about like selling stuff, and why am I in this place where I'm like, look what I get to do.
Yeah.
That's living.
Yeah.
That's living. This is. I felt so good, like because you're like, oh man, I forgot. I'm like, no, I'm cool.
I forgot, and then
record
Tony and I started playing a game on PlayStation, and and I didn't I'm playing a game. I'm not looking at my phone while I'm doing it, and then I had a roast in the oven, so I stopped because I had to go take the roast out, and then I looked at my phone. I'm like, oh.
What are you doing? You're living.
Yeah.
You're with you're doing something with your friend.
Yeah.
You're cooking. You're nourishing yourself,
Yeah.
both in heart and soul. And that's why I sit there, and I went to a meeting on the ship, and there was actually quite a few people there, and I was kind of laughing because I was like, there's a lot of drinking on the ship. It's not an issue for me.
Yeah, that's really cool that they had a meeting there, though.
Oh hell yeah!
That's great.
Oh yeah.
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 Especially
And
like
I
you
just-
said, with all that temptation around,
Yeah.
some people, I'm sure that was really helpful.
Yeah, so I went in there. I was like, I just needed to hang out with some other derelicts, some real degenerates.
Yeah.
I'm like, all those people out there all being normal and stuff. I
Right.
want to be with the real
Yeah,
freaks.
the rebels.
and
yeah.
right. And there were a bunch of relative newcomers and some people with some real issues. And the best part was there was this older guy there that wanted to like control everything. And I just was laughing. I was just laughing. I'm like, if the guy just wants to go on and on and on and on and on and talk, I'm here to listen.
Yeah.
Right. This guy cut him off and all this stuff. I just was like laughing. But what it reminded me of is that was where I needed to be at that moment. I
Yeah.
needed to hear people who are living their life, even though they've gone through some just horrible circumstances. They're still putting foot in front of the other. They're looking at where they're standing. They're looking at what they need to do. And, what more could you ask for?
Yeah.
Like, really,
Yeah.
it's,
Well, it's this thing,
Kid-
right? It's like no matter what your circumstances are, you do have some choice in things, and like you said, you really can you can stagnate, or you can baby step sometimes, And
you can find a little joy.
yeah. So
That's
it's,
it, you know.
yeah. And there's not going to be a silver lining in everything. I'm not, you know me. I'm not
No.
Johnny Positive for sure, but
But look what you're doing.
you will find, you will find more joy when you look for it, right?
Right.
Like if you don't look,
That's
you'll
it.
never find it. So
That's it.
you at
That's
least
the
have to
choices.
look.
Yep. Like when you mentioned a little bit of FOMO, I was it just reminded me of compersion again, which is compersion is the opposite of jealousy, and it really came out of. I found out that it came out of a San Francisco polyamory group where they were following Buddhist principles, and it's one of the 4 Buddhist principles for enlightenment is finding joy in what other people are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like honestly actively finding, being sympathetic of other people's accomplishments.
Yeah.
It is such and
And it is
sure,
too.
it's
Like
neat.
it brings me such joy. And you know this, you know me long enough. I celebrate people's wins. When they win, I'm all for it, you know?
Right.
Like, and I've gone, and we talked years ago, even just stuff like if I see somebody post on any social media that it's their birthday, I usually wish them happy birthday or whatever. It's like, whatever it is, I don't even care. If you're celebrating something, I'm trying to join in, you know, like
Yeah.
cool, good. Because there's so much like bleh that people are spreading that it's like whenever any of us can find a win, we should all be celebrating it, you know?
Right. That's like you just said, that's the choice.
Yeah.
I can choose to and the hardest thing, the thing with compersion is, it suggests to do this with your romantic partners, which is completely anathema to the way our society, in particular our society in the United States, we've put this I was reading some terms about these terms based on monogamy that are we've created this standard that fosters jealousy.
Yeah.
That you cannot find. You're not allowed to be happy. That somebody, that significant person in your life is finding an equal, satisfying connection with somebody that's not you.
Yeah.
And you can't be happy for that person, which
Right.
just is so weird to
Well,
me.
it's getting absorbed in ego, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It
Yeah.
has everything to do with it. That's
Yeah.
why there's such a tie to Buddhist philosophy.
Right.
And so, like, the more I look at those things, the more I go, wow, these really do come down to choices. How do I want to go through life? Do I want to go through life as a person that's jealous and that's I don't want to be. I don't want to be counting how many items a person has in the 9 items or less.
Yeah, right.
That's their deal,
Yeah,
right?
true. Yeah.
It's
It's funny. I was in the store yesterday, and the store I was in, there were 2 lines open, and this guy had, just some stuff in his arms, and he gets into the one line, and as I'm walking up, like the other line started moving again to where it actually became shorter, and I stepped in there, and he was like, he looked over at me, and he started walking toward me, and I'm like, okay, whatever, and then he was like, he wanted to go in front of me, which normally I'm like, whatever. But the way, I'm trying to think how he worded it, but he was basically trying to word it that he deserved to go before me because he was in line before me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're in a different line. Line etiquette. Sorry, buddy, you picked the wrong line. I mean, normally I would have been like, hey, go ahead. You only have like 6 items.
If you'd have come up and said, hey,
Yeah.
do you mind?
But I'm not going to lie. I just was petty in that moment and was like, no. I also had not slept at this point, so I just wanted to go home. But yeah, I definitely chose violence in that time.
It's funny though. Afterwards whether you felt wrong or not.
Yeah.
And I don't think you felt wrong.
I didn't
in that
really,
situation.
because he approached me rudely. Had he come up and been like, hey, is there any chance I can go in front of you? I would have been like, yeah, no problem. Because again, you've only got a few things.
Right.
I have a cart of things. But it was like the way he did it was almost, it just reminds me of like Jen and I had that experience years ago with a guy at a gas station where she pulled up to the pump to go next. And this guy drove around and was trying to cut in front of us. And he goes, well, I was in line. And we're like, you got out of line. Line etiquette dictates if you get out of line, you go to the back of the line. Like, you don't get to come back and get cutsies, It's like, And Jen was sitting there, and he's just screaming at her about this. And it was like, and I'm just like, and she's yelling at him, and I'm yelling at him. It's like, dude, you got out of the line. You don't get to come back, you know? And it was like, so there was no chance. I mean, like when he tried, she pulled up. The only way he was getting in was literally to hit her car. And it was just like, and he can't access the pump from where he was, you know? Like, it was just like, dude, sorry, you chose poorly. You know, because you were impatient. Had you just stayed there, you would have been next in line. But you got impatient, thought you could go to another pump. That pump was closed. So, you know, now you reap what you sow. Because normally, I'm very much the type that if I'm standing somewhere and I see someone get in line and they only have one or two things, I'm like, hey, get ahead. Go ahead. It. I don't care. Yeah. If I only have one or two things, it's a little different. Then it's like, well, you know, whatever. But it's like, you know, if especially the people that are like me, you know, that are too dumb to grab a little basket or something, and you've got like 100 things in your arms, you know, and you're about to, if you shift wrong, everything's
coming out. You're about to lose,
exactly.
You're losing them all.
You know, so I'll for sure be like, go ahead. I don't care. You know, because I'm not in that big a hurry that I can't be nice. You know.
Yeah.
So.
And that's why I think the part where you will intuitively know whether you handled something the right way or the wrong way, how it hits you afterwards.
Yeah.
And if you're practicing, you know, kindness and joy in your day, you know, someplace where, you know, all right, I gave you a little pushback. Well, I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. I used to say that when I worked retail, was people, they come up to you and they start yelling at you, expecting you to give them what they want. And I would just literally look at people and be like, I'm not going to give you what you want if you yell at me. Like, if you're nice to me, then, you know, or at least civil, we can have a conversation and you'll probably get similar to what you want. But if you're yelling at me and insulting me, where's my motivation to give you anything? You know, like, come on. If you were having this conversation in any other context, you would think it was crazy if somebody gave you what you wanted. But because people have been trained that the customer's always right, they think they can go in and act like lunatics to a person and get exactly what they want. And I was just like, yeah, that's not going to happen while I'm here. Like, I'm just, you know, what are you going to do? Complain? I get fired? Oh, no, I lost my $8 an hour job. You know, I'll go find another one. You know, and it's like, I'm not normally that attitude, but it's like, again, if you approach me with rudeness, I'm not going to reciprocate with kindness. I'm going to probably reciprocate more with, like, indifference. You know, like, I'm not going to be sympathetic to you if you're a jerk to me. That's you know, like.
Last week, we have a woman that she when she bought one of the condos, she was very self-sufficient, got in her car, did her things, and she had a stroke, and she's had 24/7 nursing care ever since then, and she's on oxygen, and she's not doing well. And something happened last week that was really bad, and like people thought that this was going to be it. And there was an ambulance out there, and all of a sudden on the radio is the general manager of the health club saying, "Yeah, there's an ambulance out there, and somebody can't get by them." And I was just, I walked in the office and I'm like, did he really just get on the radio and say that? I mean, did you really, excuse me, fire department, I know that building's on fire, but could you move over a little bit so I can get past you?
Yeah.
And I just sat there. It was one of those moments where I'm like, wow, I'm just going to find the humor in this, because that is the saddest thing I've ever heard. There's a woman that could be dying in there right now.
They have
and my
way
coworker
bigger
was
fish.
handled nice. He's like, yeah, there's an emergency right now. The ambulance is there for a reason, but I will try to go up there and talk to them, see if we can get people by.
Right.
And the general manager at that moment was realizing what he was saying. He was like, of course, if there's an emergency, then why are you on the radio?
Yeah, it's not like somebody's just parking, you know, blocking a spot or something.
The ambulance just decided to come in and block the parking lot. And the person that complained, I was like, wow, I want to meet you.
Yeah. Right. You're right. Because
this
just
ambulance is inconveniencing me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that there's someone dying right now.
Yeah.
I was like,
how dare you pick right now to potentially die when I need to get through? Yeah.
Right. I just was like, okay.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
my whatever, like I said, I try to have a positive attitude,
Yeah.
that stuff, but some things just make me go that, like, all of a sudden my eye starts to twitch a
Yeah.
little,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't need to react to it. I
Yeah.
don't need to be rude. I don't need, but I can't just let it go.
Yeah. That's why a lot of times when people will tell me stuff like that, or I see, and I'll just go, "Wow," just like it's just that's my reaction. I won't say anything else because it'll all be in my head, but I'll just leave it there, But it's just like, "Wow," like really, because it's the really that's your response, or really that's what you're choosing to do here. Okay, all right.
Oh God, I was waiting for my coworker Frank to come in because he and I deal a lot with the parking up there.
Yeah.
And there's a level of entitlement with certain
Oh,
people
man, I bet.
that go to that health club. And when Frank walked in, I'm like, "Did you hear that?" He's like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah. How dare they not get that ambulance in a parking spot?
And what was cool is the ambulance, one of the paramedics drove it around the side,
Yeah.
as soon as
Well,
Sean
we've
went
run
in there and
into
said,
that.
"Hey,
Like you've been here. So the main driveway of this place, right? Like there was somebody right across the street and they called the ambulance, an ambulance came out. They parked right behind our driveway to where you literally couldn't back out because the ambulance is taking up half the road, right? Well, we were going to go somewhere. We walk outside. I see the ambulance. Know what our response was? Call the park, of course, and complain. No, but no, we just went, okay, I guess we're not going anywhere right now. Went back in the house, because it's like clearly they have other things to deal with. Now, if there was someone sitting in the vehicle, then maybe I would have been like, hey, can you move one way or the other so we can get, and I'm sure they would have. But they're inside trying to help. And, and the woman across the street had a heart attack. They're over there trying to save her life. So yeah, it's crazy how simple that was for us to go, there's something more important going on. I guess we'll leave in 20 minutes or whatever when they leave, or move.
Yeah.
And, and sure enough, about 15 minutes later, they were gone. So,
Yeah. And it's all good.
Yeah.
Life goes on.
Yeah. It's like,
yeah.
like the question, like, I always talk on Salty Language about, like, when I see something sometimes, I'm like, I want that story, right? So in my head, I wanted, like, the person who called that in would be like, what were you in such a hurry for?
Oh, really?
That getting around the ambulance was more important. Like, that's what I want to know. Like, how do you feel that your situation was so much more important than the fact that an ambulance was there? Like, it's not somebody having a relative visiting or something, where they just park in a bad spot. Again, that happens with us. Sometimes a guy across the street, someone will park across in front of his house, and I'm like, yeah, we can't so much pull out of here because your car is we'd have to hit you to basically, and my mom's got a small car, but still, like, it'd be real close. So it's like, just, like in that scenario, I'm more just like, hey, be aware of your surroundings. There's literally a driveway right across the street. Like, don't park across from a driveway. First of all, that's a good way to get yourself hit, But yeah, I just, in that scenario, I would walk across the street and be like, hey, can you have your friend move the vehicle? And it wouldn't be a big deal. I've done it. But an ambulance, it's like, no, I'm going to let them do what they need to do. And we'll worry about leaving later or something. It'd be different if we had an emergency or something, but most of the time it's not. So that's why I said I want to know what that person's story was. Like, what do you feel was more important than whatever the ambulance was doing?
I guarantee it was their own lack of time management.
Yeah, probably, right?
Which is usually the problem.
Yeah.
There's like everyone's always gets so aggressive and angry over there because they didn't plan ahead and they showed up late for their step class or whatever.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like, and I'm usually in like the skid steer with a 10-foot plow blade on it, and they drive right up to me thinking like I'm gonna back out of the way.
Right.
And I'm like,
yeah, okay, this is gonna happen.
Okay, I just stop. Usually, I just stop, and I'm like, "What are you gonna do?"
Yeah,
yeah,
like that stuff has to be done too. It's like, sorry, but
I just try to smile.
Yeah,
and, I just sometimes it's. But like I said, my coworker Frank gets a little up on it. I'm like Frank, You just got to smile, you got to laugh a little, and you got to move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, because if
and-
you let stuff like that really get to you, you know, it's just not worth it. It's
Yeah.
just not. It's not a hill to die on for sure.
No, and we can look at it from the standpoint of, we no matter what, we can be of service to people.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just not, it's just having a good attitude when faced with something that is just utterly ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it makes your day better too, because again, if you let that get under your skin and then you're about that for like 2 hours or something like that, it's like you're better off, like you said, just look at it and just, again, wow, and just move on, like tell others and have a laugh about it. And
yeah, and like, I just kind of tie that into what you're talking about. It's like, you look at where you've come. The level of depression or anger or resentment. For me, that was the stuff like, man,
Dude,
you
I'll
want to
tell
give
you-
me something to drink over?
Yeah.
Give me people irritating me.
Yeah,
Right?
and I still, like it's something that's another one that you have to constantly fight with too. Is that like I can get hot fast, like I can get real mad real fast, and I've gotten better about pumping my brakes even when I feel myself get that mad, to where it's like, keep your mouth shut, because my brain wants to just light somebody up sometimes. And sometimes I do it, like my mom made a comment to me about, I forgot what it was. I was saying something about different times. Like, I mouth off to, we were watching, there's a show on ABC. They show once in a while called What Would You Do? And they put people in a scenario and then see how people around them react. Like they have actors do something, and then show the people reacting. And, and I'm sitting there most of the time, like the one they had was like a woman that was she's an actress, or actor, but she was supposed to be homeless, and she was coming into a restaurant, like kind of, asking for food or whatever. And the bartender, who was also an actor, was basically telling her, "You stink, get out of here." And I'm not exaggerating. That was actually what he was basically telling her. And the one time they did it, the one guy at the bar was basically like in agreement with the bartender. And somebody else was sitting there, and then he bought her food. And, and they ask him, they come out at a certain point and ask him why. And he goes, "'Cause that's another person. If you got an extra $10 and someone's hungry, you help them. That's what we should be doing." And I'm like, yes, that.
Yeah.
Right. And, and my mom was like, I love the fact that, because then they show another one where there was actually a woman at the bar who was actually homeless, and she like defended the woman and bought her food. And they were like, "Why would you do that when you're homeless?" And she goes, "Well, I'm fortunate enough that I have friends where I can kind of crash at their place, and I'm just kind of paying things forward, And it was like, dude, somebody with little was willing to give, And again, that's like, those are the best people. Those are the ones that are doing things right. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yes, kind of situation, right? My mom was like, I love that, you're always on that side. And I'm like, I'd speak up if I was sitting in there. I'd probably get myself thrown out of there, because I'd be jawing at that bartender for being a jerk, and because I've done it where I've heard people do stuff like that. And if I feel like somebody doesn't have a voice in a scenario, I many times in my life have had a very loud voice, and sometimes that comes from anger and it's not been beneficial. And there's plenty of times where I like you said, like after you do something and you're like, like I told the story on here about the woman at Walmart. They told a little girl to smile because boys like it when you smile. And I went off on that woman, like I'm like,
that.
No, you don't do that, So, and I absolutely still to this day, thinking back on it, don't regret that, because, that woman needed to get straightened out on that. But, I don't want to be a jerk to people, but I don't like it when people push something on somebody else, and like I said, if I was raised to speak up for the voiceless, essentially, and becoming more enlightened as I've gotten older, I'm a white male, so I am at the top of the privilege chart. So, I sometimes have privilege to speak when others don't. So I try to throw in when I can. But it's very much, I'll always be that person. But like I said, what I'm at now is it's like, take that second and go, are you responding because you're angry, or are you responding because the situation warrants the anger kind of like, is it just a pet peeve, or is it, because as we know, with the sensitivities I have, if I hear someone eating chips and they don't close their mouth, I want to choke them. So that's a bad reaction. But if someone's saying racist stuff or things like that or whatever, or sexist type things, then yeah, I for sure will speak up on those things. So, yeah. It's really interesting, though, because I really feel like I've spent the last few weeks like really looking inward, and I feel like things have happened. I kind of feel like, in a way, the things that have happened in my life have kind of happened to get me to look at this stuff, but not in an obsessed way, not in a negative way, but really to look at how fortunate I am in ways. And I think life hands us that sometimes, and there's a lot of times I think we miss that. Like we don't understand that, hey, this is maybe a teachable moment for yourself, or a moment where you can go, I'm doing a good job. To be kinder to yourself, even a reminder that, hey, you're doing all right. Like the brain lies a lot, and sometimes other people lie to us and tell us we're terrible, but maybe we're not so bad. Or maybe we're just terrible. I don't know, whatever. Anyway. So yeah. All right.
Well, I want to make sure that I get on after my jury duty and root canal, and then
Oh man. Yeah.
Then we'll see how that positive attitude I'm talking about is.
Yeah. You're coming here being all Debbie Downer next time.
Couple of weeks. Couple of weeks. Let's check in.
For sure.
Do another podcast. See if I'm walking the walk.
Yeah. See how much sunshine you're spreading then.
Yep.
It's gonna be at least one rough day. Jury duty's probably hit or miss, but Have you?
Well, I think
you've served before, right?
Yeah, I've done.
Yeah, okay.
I've served twice. Actually.
Have you ever had one that was like a longer term one than like a couple days, or?
I think they've all been about 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
I think one was 2 days and one was 3.
I haven't known very many people that have gotten pulled into one where it's like a longer term one. Most of it's usually like a couple days or something. So okay. That's why you got to make yourself dismissible, No, I kid.
Doing my civic duty.
I guess, yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Just remember, as soon as it starts, just stand up and point at him and say guilty. Immediately. Anyway. All right. So I think we good?
Yeah.
All right.
Good chat.
All right. Well, if you want to continue the conversation, I got to pull up the list that I forgot to do already. There it is. You can email us if you'd like at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. Actually, I need to start checking that because I think Jen was checking it. So if she's not on the show, I either need to switch that email address maybe or see if she'll give me access to it. You can find the show on Twitter where I post when new episodes go up at the Crazy Life Pod. I always forget to mention, if you want to listen to us on YouTube, the show goes up on YouTube, I believe, every week. There's no video, but if YouTube is your preferred listening way, that's always an option too. What was I going to say here? I forgot. Oh, Henno, how can they find you? We'll go there and then I'll come back.
Oh, you can find me on Facebook and Twitter. You look up Henno Heiter. I'm on there, and I guess I'm on Threads too. And Oh, not Twitter, Instagram. I'm not doing Twitter.
Yeah, fair enough.
Basically, I'm having fun posting stuff about my dogs and silly things like travels and kind of fun.
Yeah, that's how it should be. Like, just,
Funny things that I find on the internet, I add to my story because they're funny and silly. And I do like that what is it, that depressing affirmations?
Oh, yeah.
I guess they're coming out with a book.
oh, really? That doesn't
I
surprise
bet
me.
it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And the reason it's funny. So I make fun of it because of sobriety. There were all of those slogans.
Yeah.
And every single one of them, you looked at them and you're like, oh God.
Yeah.
But then in the end, they all turn out to be true.
Yeah.
and that's why I think I like to make light of them a little bit, because the bottom line is they all come true.
Right. I think what it is, especially like you and I, is we both have been on the other side of it, to where, you know, obviously we're just like, ugh, this platitude, you know, you're like, whatever. And then once you start seeing some of them and you're just like, dang it, you know, and it's like, I feel like when making fun of those, I feel like you and I, a lot of times we're kind of throwing it back in our own faces a little bit. So I think that's kind of where it comes from, for me at least, is that I'm making fun of how, you know, even still, I mean, I still do it though. Sometimes you hear some of them and you're just like, ugh, you know, like, you know, or like I said, my therapist has got a bunch of different stuff up on her walls, and they're all true things, you know, but it just like, you know, like, enough. All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter and various other social medias like Threads and Blue Sky and Instagram at Stunami. You can find my other podcast at salty_language on Twitter. Or if you just go to saltylanguage.com, there's, I believe, a link tree or something like that. It's got all of our links on there. That show's not safe for work, and it's just me and my best friend. This last episode, we talked about before this came out, but it was the talk that Wendy's was going to do surge pricing, Coke Spice. Researchers created a very big disk for storage. Then we talked about some video games. So yeah, if you're into any of that stuff, please give us a listen. You can find this show on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. And we're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows there and join us if you have a podcast and need a home for it. So yeah, I think that's all of those things. All right. So yeah, as we've already talked about, you know, it's, you know, if you need help, please reach out. And again, I implore people to understand that you don't have to have a mental illness to benefit from therapy. You know, if you have grief or you know, just sometimes talk therapy can really help. So, you know, it doesn't have to be that you're in a bad way with depression or something of that regard. But as we've talked on here before, if you feel your life is being negatively affected by something, you know, seek some help if you need to. You know, and please be kind to others as they do that, and please be kind to others just in general. You know, it's, you know, unless they step to you in a rude manner, then by all means be petty. I kid. But yeah, you know, it's like when I've been going to Aldi, I've been fortunate the last few times. I mean, I always have the Aldi quarter in my pocket because their carts have a quarter system that you put a quarter in, then when you return the cart, you get your quarter back. But the last, like, I don't know, 4 times, someone's either given me a cart or there's been one just sitting out there, so I haven't had to do it, you know. And so I've just continued it forward to where if I see somebody walking up and I'll be like, do you need a cart? And they're like, yeah. I'll be like, hold on, you know, like throw my bags in and, you know, kind of a situation. So it's like even little stuff like that. It's funny how much people appreciate that. Even though almost everybody who goes there regularly knows to bring your quarter, you know, it's really funny how much people appreciate that. Even though it's literally, even if you were just giving them your quarter, you know what I mean? And not paying it forward. So yeah, just little things like that sometimes can make people happy or give them a smile. So show some kindness whenever you can. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's it. So, all right. Well, Henno, I guess if you want to take us out of here.
Yep. Don't forget to live your omelet however you like it. And don't worry about yesterday's pizza. Unless it's a pizza you don't like.
Yeah.
And maybe you should worry about it because it might, like anchovies the next day, maybe not.
Probably
so
a bad call. Yeah.
Yeah, bad call.
Yeah. I'd skip that.
Yeah.